What's up, guys? Matt Vaughan here, back with another video for CardsChat. It's been a bit since I've done anything besides sort of like a play and explain or like a hand walkthrough or something like that. So I'm going to do something a little different today. Want to start probably like a mini series on this using a piece of software called GTO Wizard that I personally have been using quite a bit lately. And it's sort of the easiest thing for me to dive into, sort of the easiest thing for me to talk about since I'm using it myself. This is not a paid video. It is not something that is endorsed by GTO Wizard, and CardsChat doesn't endorse GTO Wizard either. But yeah, I just think that this is a cool piece of software. Kind of want to intro you guys to some of the ways that I use it. And then in future videos, I'll probably go a little more in depth, maybe run through some trainer sessions with you guys, stuff like that. So right away, we're on the home screen here, GTO Wizard. You can see there are a lot of options. There are three sort of primary categories that GTO Wizard operates in, and you can see them right at the top here. It's study, practice, and analysis. And study is sort of like you're away from the table. Well, I mean, all of us are away from the table. Obviously, don't use it at the table. But study is like looking at a specific hand breakdown, running a report on a number of different kinds of flops, looking at their coaching videos, right? Training or practice rather would be their trainer, which allows you to run specified scenarios and actually try your hand at those spots in real time without seeing the solution. Range builder is going to be looking at a spot and building out the whole range, not just being dealt a specific hand, but saying, okay, here's the spot I'm in. What should I do with the entirety of my range? What should the entirety of my range look like? And then stats is just going to be like looking at your performance across those trainings. And then analyzing is for kind of like your own hands. You can run a bunch of your online poker hands through these uploads. And then you can look at them after the fact. And then I guess this report section, which it says coming soon, will be probably more along the lines of looking at kind of like a breakdown of your play throughout all the hands that you've uploaded. So for example, I think I've uploaded like 100,000 hands or something like that. With a premium subscription, I think you can do 100,000 hands per month, which is pretty reasonable. I mean, most people are not playing 100,000 hands per month. I don't know why it's taking so long to load. Usually it's a little bit faster. But I haven't uploaded any this month, so it says 0. But what will kind of come up here is going to be any of the hands that I have played. And I can sort it by various things like, something, maybe not the best time to run a video. We have an error going on. But essentially, when this works, it'll pop up a bunch of like options that I can filter by. You saw the filter options here. I can filter it down to the game type or, like the date or, like a position I was in, the street that there was a focus on, whatever, and whether I lost EV relative to a pre-solved scenario. Now, this isn't perfect. They're not solving your hand and then saying there was EV lost or something. Like they're not necessarily choosing bet sizes that you would. And so there's like obviously a lot of nuance here, but it's kind of cool to just be able to throw it in there and say how different is what I'm doing from a GTO strategy. Since that's not working. Oh, uploads. Okay. Well, this part's working. You can see I've uploaded 87,000 hands. That's all from, I think, like online tournaments that I played in the last year or two. You can see that my average EV loss per hand was minus 0.04, which would tend to assume that I am losing something like 4 big blinds per 100 hands relative to what just the straight up GTO strategy would do. And that's not to say that my strategy was worse than GTO in that situation, just that if my opponents were playing GTO, or playing this exact equilibrium strategy, my strategy would lose 4 big blinds per 100. It tells you kind of the breakdown of how often you have wrong plays according to them. And wrong play would be, it's like if the solver says that you could, raise small or raise big, and you raise small, but raise big was a higher frequency action, it's not a wrong play. It would be considered a correct play in this instance. This little green check mark means that you are at least not the most wrong, or that it is a selected action. So a lot of cool stuff that you can look at here. I think you can like dive deep into the actual hands. Maybe you have to do that from hands, and so that report's not working. But in any case, let's dive now into the study, because the study is like, I think, cool if you want to see, all right, let's say I played this spot on this board, and it was marked as a mistake when you're looking at the analysis of your own hands, but you're like, what? But I don't really know what that means. Like, what kind of mistake was it? Was it a small mistake, big mistake? It says it's a big mistake, but like, which part of the hand was it? What was the problem? And so you might come over here into the study section and start loading up the hand. So first and foremost, when you start out plugging stuff in here, you're going to go over to the solution selector, and you're going to select, obviously whichever format you're playing in. Personally, I'm playing mostly MTTs right now, so this is where I camp out. MTT, they have been adding a ton of solutions lately, so it's getting to be pretty nuts. They have heads up, they have chip EV, which allows for a few different like scenarios. You can do 6 max, which allows for a set of mixed and symmetrical stacks. So symmetrical stacks just means everybody has the same stack. Mixed means, you can see here, not everybody has the same stack. So it's pretty noteworthy. 9 max, they also have a combination of mixed stacks and symmetrical stacks. And then 8 max, which is kind of like their flagship that they had the most solutions for, they have all these symmetrical stack sizes. This is where I do the most of my work, just because, when you're looking at pre-solved situations, it's all going to be heads up anyway. And so you're dealing with one effective stack. You're not dealing with, okay, I have, 15 bigs effective against this guy, but 20 against this guy and 40 against that guy. I mean, in practice, if you play live, like that will happen. But when you're looking at like GTO equilibrium strategies, for the most part, we're looking at just heads up stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as is, just because there's already, well, it turns out I didn't actually leave the spot in there because I changed the solution technically. But what's cool is that, for example, let's say I want to just study under the gun opening ranges. For whatever reason, I'm not like confident in my under the gun opening range. You can actually, so I'm looking at this strategy, right? And I'm like, okay, ace-3 suited plus, but ace-3 is a mix, ace-10 off plus, that's the fringe, a little bit of king-jack, a little bit of tiny bit of queen-jack, jack-10 off, all the pairs, but like we're mixing folds with deuces through 4s, and not a lot of suited connectors, right? We have all the suited Broadways, and then down to the suited Broadway 9x hands, and then a little tiny bit of king-8, 10-8, and some 9-8, but not a lot of suited connectors, right? Just mixing in a bit. So that's like, I have that in my head, right? But I'm like, but what about if I go down to 60 big blinds? How different is it? Or 80 big blinds? How different is it? I can literally just come here, drop in, and it will drop me at the exact same point in this sim. As long as I don't change, like this part, if I just change the effective stacks, it will drop me in the same point. I can go to 60, I can go to 40, and I can see these differences, and I can kind of process it a little bit better that way in my study, because if I'm like, say, just trying to memorize every single range, I mean, there's literally like under the gun through small blind for every single one of these stack depths. It's a ton. It's a lot easier to kind of say, okay, at 100 bigs, we were opening king 8 suited, but also some like suited connectors, and I can see that actually there's fewer of those the weaker suited connectors, and more of these like strong suited hands, the high suited hands. So maybe as I get smaller in stack depth, I'm starting to value high cards more. We're also not getting we're actually taking out some offsuit combos relatively as we go from like 60 to 40, I think. And then as we go to 30, does that trend continue? We now lose the small pairs. A lot of consistency in the suited Broadway, not changing a lot. You can see like the percentage of hands that we open is 19. As we go to 25%, it goes to 18.1. So we're tightening up now. Whereas at 100, we're at 16.5. So it's interesting that there's like a loosening and then a tightening. So that there's things that I might want to grasp from that or try to get from that. And the nice thing is you can do this from any position, any node of this game tree. This is a recent development that they added. Now, if I change the stack depths, it's going to still like maintain the spot as close as it can. So let's just drop into a 100 big blind effective spot. We're going to have a low jack opener, and the hijack is going to 3-bet. I guess I'll tell you what I had in this hand. I have jack 9 suited. I have jack 9 of clubs. I chose to 3-bet, and it folded all the way around to the low jack, who made the call. So I should probably, before we do that, I should probably talk about like what all these colors are and stuff like that, because this is customizable, and the way they run it, I think, is on a gradient usually. So you'll see that different bet sizes will sometimes be sort of the same color. I tried to do a lot of like differentiating of the colors to make it easier to process for my brain. So over here on the right, you can see that fold is always this very dark gray. Call is blue. Call and check are blue, so the passive option is blue. And then the very small bet sizes are these like lightish blue-green. And then the next sizes up will be green. Next sizes up will be yellowish, orangish, reddish, and then dark reds for overbets. So we'll start to see that as we go on. The board was 9-8-7. Again, I have jack 9 of clubs. And if we go to the low jack, this is a board that's going to hit the low jack range quite a bit as far as like their defense to 3-bet range. Going to have a lot of this, like, you know, they'll have all the sets. They have all these suited connectors. They have even their pairs that aren't sets like connect with the board as a gut shot or open-ended a lot. They have a lot of like pair plus open-ended. They have like, you know, second pair and open-ended, top pair and open-ended. They just have like so much stuff. They have 2 pairs. They also have strong flush draws, backdoors, you know, ace high with straight draws, stuff like this. King 6 suited is just like in there leading a ton. So basically what happens is, if we look at the, not to get too deep into this because like this isn't really a strategy video, but if we look at the hijack 3-bet range, there's a lot more like, we're heavier on ace X, we're heavier on king X, queen X than they are. And we have like more of the weak pairs than they do when they call, I think. Oh no, they still have deuces in full. So a lot of this is coming from like the offsuit Broadway that they either 4-bet or fold pre, I think. Let's see. Yeah, or that they just don't even, that they either just don't even open. Let's see. Low jack, and then a 3-bet, and then, yeah, so it's just folding a bunch of the offsuit Broadway, where if you look at like what our 3-bet range consists of, we have all this suited Broadway, a bunch of stuff going on basically. But like one thing we can look at here is, the ranges. It can actually show side by side. This is what I should have done right away. I'm still not the best at using this breakdown, but this ranges little thing allows you to see basically like who has all the best hands. And while we do have we as the 3-better, I'm sorry, this is the hijack. That makes more sense. So you can see that the low jack does have a best hand advantage. So they have jack 10 advantage. They have 9s, 9-8, 8, 7s advantage. Even though those hands are being 3-bet at some frequency, there's just not There's just not as many of them in our range, and that's where a lot of the advantage is coming from. We do have an advantage in good hands, which is sort of like, you know, we're talking about like 2 pairs, and we're talking about, you know, like maybe strong top pairs and over pairs and strong draws and stuff like that. But it's not by very much. You'll notice that, you know, it's like 38 to 34% versus like they have double the better hands as us. And then in the weak hands, we have more hands here than them. They do have more trash. Hijack does have more trash than us, apparently, in terms of the frequency. But I think that the fact that they make up for it with the best hands makes it problematic for the 3-better and allows the out of position player to be aggressive with leads. So you can see that it's mixing a lot. I mean, there's a lot of nuance here to like, why is it mixing? What does it mean for it to mix? But all you really need to know is that it's okay with it choosing different bet sizes. And over here on the right, it's picking sizes. The favored size is 25% pot, but there's a lot of 50% pot in there. It's only checking half the time, which is pretty interesting. In game, my opponent did check, and I should probably check back a pretty high frequency of hands. Jack 9 suited being probably a pure check in game would make sense, but I did decide to bet quarter pot. There's nothing inherently super wrong with it, but it's probably pushing it a bit. So I decided to go 25%, and on the turn, they called. No, they check raised. This is why I need to pay attention. Okay, they check raised small. And you can see that they are favoring this with a lot of hands as well. They still get to play aggressively even after they've checked because they still have this advantage when they get to this board. So they check raise small, and I decided to call, which you can see is happening in full here. Another important thing to note, by the way, before I go on, is that you notice I have all of these range heights in full, even though not the entirety of this combo of ace jack suited is in here. I have it full height just for ease of seeing it. But you can put it to range height, which shows both the frequency of how often they show up with this combo. So like, this is like they're only showing up with it, you know, whatever that is, 15% of the time or something. So the black portion above is they're not showing up with it. And then the left to right is sort of like how often they take each action. So you can see here, like ace 5 suited is raised some, raised a different size some, called some, and folded a lot. And that's on the right side, you can see which combos are actually doing what. I often go to normalized to just make it a little bit easier to look at. But you can also do full height, which is like the easiest for displaying and seeing what's going on specifically this street. All right. Turn card was the 10 of diamonds. And we go to the low jack, who now still gets to do a lot of betting. They check raise a good amount of jack X or whatever. So they have straights. They even have queen jack a good amount. They have, you know, still hands that would like to bet small and get value, but they are checking a lot now, relatively. And I'm trying to remember if there was a check or bet in game. I think it was check and then over bet on the river. I think it went check. It either went check or it either went check or he went small bet and then over bet. But we'll just do check for now. And then river paired the board, which is why it was like pretty not fun, almost no matter which line it was. He does end up. I think he technically didn't choose an all-in size because like we were actually deeper than this, and GTO Wizard only goes up to 100 big blinds effective. We're probably like 300 big blinds effective because it's very early in the tournament. But this is like the closest size to what he did. He probably did like 125% or something like that. So when he goes all in, we see that, you know, actually if we go to the summary of the, I think we can just do strategy. hands. There we go. So if we go into filters, sorry. Is this what I wanted? I'm still not a pro at all of these various. Oh, I see. Okay, that's just the top one. That's fine. Yeah. So this is like how often they're taking each action with each hand type. And you can see that when I have a straight, I almost always call. And I'm not really sure, like it's probably down to blockers, which straights it's folding. And then anything worse than trips, it's like basically always folding. Low pairs is, I mean, are we really, we're calling with ace-7 suited? Whew. I would not have called with ace-7 suited, but I did end up calling with jack-9 suited. And we ended up chopping against pocket jacks, which interestingly doesn't really ever overbet the all-in in this line. I mean, it's not a perfect breakdown, but anyway, pretty interesting. So that's the study tool. I didn't mean to get too deep into this, so I think what I'm going to do is call this video here, and then in the next video we'll dive into the reports and then maybe the training or vice versa, because I think there's a lot of value to be had there, but I don't want this to be a super long video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this like little hand breakdown, but getting a little bit of a flavor for GTO Wizard, and I'll get you with another video soon. This has been Matt Vaughan with CardsChat.